All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Project-Based Section 8 Voucher RFP webinar this afternoon. My name is Courtney Loisel. I'm the Project-Based Voucher Manager here at HCR. We also have on the phone with us Connie Bruno, who's our Section 8 Director, and Lenny Skrill from the HFA side of the house. So if you have questions as we're going through, there's plenty of expertise on the phone. I'm going to go through the webinar and everyone will remain on mute. That's just to reduce background noise during the course of the webinar. But if you do have any questions, feel free to enter it into the chat or unmute yourself. I believe you can press *6 on your phone to do that, or if you have the WebEx up, you can unmute yourself by just pushing the little microphone next to your phone number on this screen. I am recording as well for posting later. So let's get started. So the RFP for Project-Based Section 8 has two goals. One of them is to increase the supply of quality of housing that's affordable to low-income households in communities across the state and to support deconcentration of poverty and expanding housing and economic opportunities. Our other goal is to preserve the long-term viability of existing affordable housing that was previously assisted with federal and state investments. This slide shows a summary of the resources that are going to be available as part of this RFP. The total number of project-based vouchers available in this RFP will be 150, and that's 150 for both tracks that we'll talk about in a minute. Eligible properties are properties requiring construction, or they may also be existing properties. The contracts offered for this RFP will be 20 years. Units, there's no minimum unit request for this RFP. The maximum is 25 units or 25% of the units at the property, or if the property is located in a low poverty area, you may request up to 40% of the units for project-based vouchers. Or if your property is serving elderly, age 62 and older, or households that are eligible for supportive services, there's no unit maximum request for this RFP. Within the Section 8 program, there is an income target for very low, which is defined as 50% of area median income, and extremely low, which is defined as 30% of area median income households. Throughout the entire program, at least 75% of new admissions have to be under that 30% of AMI range, and the project-based vouchers are included in that count. And then there's some statutes and regulations here that you should be familiar with as part of the RFP. So track one is new projects. This track one will include projects that are either new construction or preservation and substantial rehabilitation are going to take place at that project within the next 2 years. Projects in track one are only permitted to apply if they've either been awarded or they have a current application pending for at least one other construction or permanent financing source through DHCR, HTFC, AHC, or HFA. Potential funding sources could be, but are not limited to, the current 9% low-income housing tax credit RFP, projects that are in the process of receiving 4% LIHTC or bond financing, and projects participating in a small building participation loan program. To be eligible under track one, properties must not have started construction or undertaken any choice limiting actions under 24 CFR 58.22 before signing their agreement to enter into a housing assistance payment contract. The agreement to enter into housing assistance payment contract is for project-based units before any construction begins.
for tonight?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just also wanted to mention that Heather Spitzberg has also joined the call.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Heather.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. All right. The second track under this RFP is track 2 for existing projects. Track 2 includes existing properties where construction or substantial rehabilitation has not taken place in the past year and will not take place within the next 2 years. In order to be eligible, the property must have previously received funding from DHCR, HTFC, or HFA under the 9% LIHTC, 4% LIHTC, the HTFC financing, home financing, HFA bond financing, SLIC, or other competitively awarded HFA or HTFC loan or subsidy, state supervised public housing, or state supervised Mitchell-Lama housing. Under track 2, as an existing property, the property must be existing housing as per HUD's definition. The property must have a current regulatory agreement through one or more of the above listed programs. And at the time of the award, the property must be compliant with the housing quality standards, which is the inspection standard in the Section 8 program and other applicable requirements. If you are considering a property that already has a project-based voucher contract with HCR and you would like to add more project-based vouchers, but you meet all the other criteria under track 2, you may also apply under track 2. All right, so the RFP was issued on June 30th. Applications will be due on August 12th of 2021 at 5 p.m. And we anticipate that awards will be made sometime in mid-October. So a few more details about the project-based voucher eligibility. There will be one project or property per proposal. The property must be either applying for or previously received funding from DHCR, HTFC, or HFA under the following programs, which I mentioned before. Eligible properties can be single buildings, multiple contiguous buildings, multiple buildings on contiguous parcels of land, or scattered site projects. Manufactured home projects may also apply if the project includes set structures, so there's no mobile part of the home. It's going to stay on the site and does not include a pad rent as part of the cost. Existing housing must have all units substantially complying with the housing quality standards for physical condition at the time of the award. Just a little more detail on our unit maximum. Again, properties may request a hire of 25 units or 25% of the units at the property. Or if the properties are located in a low poverty area, they may request up to 40% of units. The definition of a low poverty area is set by HUD, and there is a link within the RFP that shows you the map where HUD considers low poverty areas. Or if your property is serving elderly age 62 and older or households eligible for supportive services, there's no unit maximum. There's again no unit minimum for this RFP, and just a reminder that eligible units cannot have an existing rental subsidy. I wanted to give a few examples about our unit maximum because this can sometimes be a little bit confusing. And I just wanted to add that the unit maximum includes all project-based Section 8 that might exist at the property. So if you have an existing project-based Section 8 contract from another housing authority, you will want to include that in your total units. So an example, if your property had 25 units, that means you can request up to 25 PBVs as long as none of those units have subsidy existing on them. If the property has 100 units, then you could still request up to 25 project-based vouchers. but if the units were serving elderly households, you could request up to 100. So if there's any questions about this, please chime in at the end of the presentation. The application includes 6 tabs. Tab 1 is a cover letter. Tab 2 is applicant information, which is a fillable form within the RFP. Tab 3 is a narrative. Tab 4 is your operating assessment, and the operating assessment for track 1 properties will be the same underwriting workbook that you have worked on for your other application that you're doing, either the 9% or the 4% application. For existing properties in tab 2, the tab 4 operating assessment is also posted on the RFP website. Tab 5 is a vendor responsibility questionnaire and additional certifications. And the link to that responsibility questionnaire is also within the RFP. And then tab 6 is supporting attachments that are listed in the RFP. Please just make sure that you read carefully because track 1 and track 2 have slightly different required responses. A few notes just on tab 4, the underwriting. Rent plus tenant paid utilities cannot exceed 110% of the fair market rent. The fair market rent is published annually by HUD, and the link is here. I will also be posting these slides on the RFP website, so you'll be able to click on this link probably within the next few days. However, if your area has a lower market rate rent than 110% of the FMR, that lower market rate rent will be the highest rent that can be calculated within our program. Tab 4 also includes a debt coverage ratio and cash flow as percentage of operating that must fall. So the debt coverage ratio must fall between 1.0 and 1.45, and the cash flow as percentage of operating expenses must not exceed 10%. Projects which vary from these numbers may be denied, but any variance outside these numbers should be explained in detail in the one-page summary that you can include with tab 4. So project-based voucher applicants. Any selected properties are responsible for being aware of laws and regulations regarding project-based vouchers. Properties will be subject to environmental review and to subsidy layering review requirements. Davis-Bacon is triggered at 9 PBV units, so up to 8 does not trigger Davis-Bacon. And then again, properties should be familiar with federal and state requirements as listed in the RFP. All right, here's just our contact information and a link to the application materials. Both the email to courtenay.loisel@nyshcr.org and rental RFP both come to me. So you can reach out to either one with questions. I see that there's a question in the chat about scheduling a TA session. You may reach out to the rental RFP email anytime and request a TA session. There's no deadline for submitting a TA meeting request. I have another question in the chat. Are evidence of insurance and tax returns for the property required for the proposal if the proposal is for a building to be constructed with 9% LIHTC? Let's see, check in the. Lenny, do you require insurance and tax returns for properties as part of your application?
No, we don't.
No, okay, so I would say then no, it wouldn't be part of our application either. All right, so thank you for the 2 folks in the chat. Okay, we have another one. The question is, if a property is planning on applying this round for the 9% funding, will that still count as a pending application if the PBV application is due prior to the other RFPs? So the answer is yes. If you are in the process of submitting an application for the 9% right now, we would consider you pending an application there, even though you might submit it a little bit after our application is due.
Courtney, if I can chime in,
Sure.
you know, the expectation is that the 9% team and the 4% team will work with Courtney in the Section 8 PBV RFP to make sure that we are aware of each other's applications and will coordinate as appropriate.
Thank you. All right, the floor is open for questions. If you have one, you can either type it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask. All right, I have another question in the chat. For a scattered site project that closed with HCR funding in March 2021, construction is about to start. Oops, sorry, it just moved a little bit. But not on the building that we're considering for this RFP. All right, I'm a little unclear what the question is. Can you provide a little more detail? Are you saying that you're considering another project to request project-based vouchers for, but not the one that you are currently about to close on? I think, can you just clarify the question for me?
Hi,
all right.
it might be easier to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. So we recently closed on a project with HFA financing. It's a preservation deal and tax credit, and we are considering PBVs for one of the buildings out of 24. I'm just unclear what track this would fall under, if it's track 1 or 2.
So you just closed, so you're going to do construction on the building?
Rehab, yes.
All right, have you started construction yet?
I mean, they're mobilizing. The notice to proceed has been issued. You know, there's supply chain issues, but construction has not started on the specific building that we're considering PBVs for.
And it's 9%?
That's HFA, right? You said?
Yes.
And so but you've already, again, I thought I heard Heather join the call. I think the standard is, you know, choice limiting actions. It sounds to me that if you've closed on your financing, you potentially have done, but I would defer to Heather on in terms of NEPA law if she's on the call.
Okay, I can also speak offline and loop in our project manager at HFA also.
Okay.
Yeah, we can do it online. Thank you, though.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Thank you. This one might be for you too, Lenny. Will a project-based voucher application count as one of the sources of financing for a 9% application and make the project ineligible for, as an example, HTS funds?
No, I mean, we will, if you propose I mean, the only way that could occur would be is if you're proposing, let me just use an example. Let's say you're proposing a mixed income project where 100% of the units would be affordable for people over 60% of it, between 50 and 60% of annual income. The RFP basically says that the units have to be, 75 to 70% of the units need to be targeted to people 30 and the balance 50. If you're proposing units between 50 and 60, that could be an eligibility issue. I would recommend, if you have those type of questions, to raise those type of questions as part of your TA process that going on for the unified funding thing, and we can engage, bring in Courtney to provide whatever elaboration necessary to make sure that you do the best job possible when submitting your application.
Thank you. All right, the next question, are you able to designate a population for the PBV units? For example, we want to have some domestic violence units and wanted to see if the PBV units could be used for this set aside. The answer is yes. I think you would, if you specified people who are fleeing domestic violence as your eligible population, there would be some additional kind of documentation that would be required around the services that are expected and where the referral of eligible households would be coming from. I believe there's a link in our RFP to our admin plan, which shows kind of what our requirements for service plans are. But if not, shoot me an email and I can send you a link to it. But the short answer is yes, that you could do a set aside in that way.
Courtney, can I just add something as well? I mean, oftentimes many of the projects that serve victims of domestic violence also apply for ESHI funds. And there are rules about how, when Section 8 PBVs are combined with ESHI, both in the city of New York and outside the city of New York. And again, it's probably something that I would pursue as part of your unified funding, HFA, TA, to make sure that you're handling the combination appropriately.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Thank you. All right, another question is should tab 1, the cover letter, be on letterhead? I don't think it's required, but I think that would be good, but it's not a requirement. All right, just waiting to see if there's any further questions. All right, it looks like we may have exhausted the questions for today. I would, again, invite you to send me an email to schedule any TA conferences that you'd like to have, or if you have any specific questions. I am certainly available to answer them. I will be posting this presentation on the RFP website, so you can look for both the slides and the recording there. And I look forward to hearing from everyone with any questions and with your proposals. So thank you so much for joining me today, and have a great rest of your afternoon.